restaurant you go to, a new job, or something, your kids go have a new teacher, whatever the situation would be, when you see it for the first time, observe how you want to come to a conclusion about it. So maybe you talk to your kid's teacher and you say, oh, they're not so bad. Oh, I think that'll be okay. What's in play there? You feel, oh, that's fine. What am I doing? Am I really looking? Are there lots of questions I didn't ask? And why didn't I ask them? Is it because I'm frightened to ask them? Or I want them to like me? Or I don't believe I will get an honest answer? But can we really check things out? Can we really see what we're buying into? That's a very essential part of looking. So we can see this place here. Some of us met together a while ago, and we were thinking about the ending of this as a Dharma center, and now we're back again, and it looks pretty much the same. This is due to the basic kindness of the person who's the owner here, Chris, who continues to keep an eye on what's going on, and is basically for the ethical use of this building. It's due to the energy of the people who involved in the maintenance and who are being thoughtful about continuity. Sue and Anne, Barbara, Gisela, Kath, Mags, and so on, people who come together and think, how can we make these environments flourish? Without that effort, we wouldn't be meeting here today. This is not self-existing, and then somebody had to work out how to bring some chairs in and so on. So everything is a construct. Then each person can think, so what is it that brings me here? What are the factors from my childhood, my current life, that I heard something about Dharma, or I read a book, or somebody mentioned something? And we see these little winds that blow across our lives, and suddenly we find ourselves moving in some direction. And that it wasn't a kind of clear intention arising out of ourselves, but it just sort of happened. We find ourselves in that place. So the more we look, we see there is no solid substance or self-essence at the heart of anything that we're involved in. What we have is forms manifesting as the expression of the interaction of the meeting of complex vectors. These vectors are force fields of intention and habit and mental formations suffused with emotion. So, a Dharma place like this arises because of particular kinds of intentions. These intentions need to meet a material basis that allows the continuity for a while. That may shift. We might never meet here again. But while it's happening, we can think, oh, we're just here. But this just here-ness is dynamic. So linking this with the impermanence we looked at yesterday, dependent co-origination is the moving together of impermanent, or in another language, dynamic features. There is nothing stable in our world at all, but our world is the manifestation of patterning. The patterning is intrinsic. We, when we want to control things, are often trying to adjust and change patterns and make them more customized to our own prejudices and tendencies. But this world is nothing but pattern. Pattern is how things manifest. They don't manifest as chaos. So, if we want to see the illusory nature of things, we could see we're here in this room together. On one level, it's full of quite solid, concrete substances which don't seem to be an illusion. But their presence here and our experience of them, as we were looking yesterday, are inseparable. But what is here is revealed to us by our particular orientation. We're not seeing our statue, but the experience of our statue is co-emergent with our participation. That is to say, how you participate with the statue reveals that statue for you. And this is where we have to look again and again, whether we think there is a statue, everybody's looking at the same statue, it's just that we have different opinions about it. That's one view, and that's our normal view. But is that really true? What is this real statue that we all have opinions about? Then you go back to Plato's notion of ideals, that in this world we all see things according to our prejudices, but in this perfect realm you see things very clearly. Or in his image of the cave. And it's as if we are living in a cave and we don't have access to what's outside. All we see is shadows flickering on the wall, on the basis of which we interpret what's going on. Buddhist view would be different. Would say there is no fixed thing here at all. That to imagine that there is a self-existing statue is erroneous, because the statue which we see and which you could lift up and take away is here on a table. If you lifted it up, you'd find it's quite heavy, so you want to put it down. You then have to work out, where will I put the statue down? Because the statue is always somewhere. That is dependent co-origination. For example, here there is a metal, quite heavy, metal representation of a stupa. It's quite nice. I looked yesterday and the top of it has been flattened. It's had a little accident. Now, because it's metal, if you try to straighten it with pliers, it's likely to break off. So there's a problem. How could this have happened? Quite clearly, somebody sat on it or they packed it in a particular way and it got clunked. Huh? It's not self-existing. When the Chinese went into Tibet, they saw many statues like this one of Padmasambhava. And they hit them with hammers. And they took them away and they melted them down and used them to make guns and weapons and so on. What is there is experience. We are addicted to seeing things. You cannot see a thing. What we call seeing is a particular kind of experience. What we call touching is a particular kind of experience. So if I pick this up, I feel the heaviness of it. So I feel the muscles in my arm having to tense to support the weight of the object. This feels real. Why does it feel real? Because I wouldn't like to be hit with it. That's very basic. We learn that as a kid, don't we? When you fall out of a tree, or somebody pushes you off your bicycle, or somebody thumps you in the playground, you realize that ow is linked to who. I don't want to be hurt. My self-protectiveness has me scanning the environment for danger. We do this all the time. We look at the environment, two things primarily we're looking for, danger and sex. This is kind of hardwiring of the human condition. So if something is heavy, it could hit me. Somebody could pick me up and hit me with it. I could break my bones if I dropped it on my foot, I'd break the bones. So the solidity of that stands in relation to the nature of this soft body. Do you have a sense of that? You know, when you see a car driving down the road, if that car came off the road onto the pavement and hit you, you would end up severely injured. So the relation to these objects is through myself. And if the car is being driven well and I have no anxiety about it, I feel relaxed. But if you're in a car on the motorway and somebody's coming up to overtake and they look as if they're swerving across the line, how does the body feel? Something is being communicated, isn't it? Something bad could happen. This is not safe. So that object, if it was being driven well, wouldn't be producing this. That is to say, how we make sense of a car is very much in terms of, do I need to attend to it or not? Which, if you're interested in the 5 skandhas, takes us back to feeling tone, to the Vedana. That is to say, is positive, neutral, or negative. Most of the time, if you're driving, cars are just kind of neutral. But if somebody's driving very badly, it's immediately negative, and that feeling tone of anxiety is registering for us.
And it also can manifest itself and react. Other drivers can also
Absolutely.
React and say
Absolutely.
it manifests
Absolutely.
all along.
Absolutely. And then we may well come to some judgment. We might think arsehole. And on the basis of that, we now know this is a bad driver. What's actually occurring is a movement of an object at speed in an irregular pattern. And if you're the driver, you have to negotiate to make sure that irregularly moving object doesn't crash into you. But out of our fear, we're likely to make some pejorative judgment on them, to see them as dangerous or bad, or they shouldn't be allowed to drive, or what are they doing. So there you see the concretization of something. It's actually just a kind of a movement. And if you avoid the accident, it just goes by. But a lot of the time people concretize that inside themselves and come to a very fixed judgment, because I'm in danger. So one of the key things we have to start to observe is, what is the nature of embodiment? Because as long as we have a primary attachment to the body, and the body is finite, we know that we get sick, we know we're going to die. As we get older, we don't have so much health, we don't have so much capacity to maintain focused attention. The prime period of our life probably runs from 35 to 60. Because up to the age of 35, most people are a bit psychologically all over the place, life's a bit chaotic, and then you start to settle down, your life takes on a bit of a shape. By the time you're getting to 60, you start to have these senior moments. You lose words, you can't remember the spelling of something. The brain is starting to dissolve back into the primordial treacle. And you start to think of the past, when I used to, in my day. And it's fading away. So that's not a very long time. That's 25 years. 25 years in which to be clear. And after that period, with diminishing capacity, you can still do things. But there are many things that become more difficult to do. And that's a fact of our existence. So we're often surprised as we get older. Oh, my hip's sore. Getting up in the morning's more difficult. I wonder why. Because you're getting old. But I don't feel old. But you are old. But I don't want to be old. But you are old. So there we see that we develop this map in our head about who we are, and we don't change it. It's one of the huge horizons that's spreading out in this and many other cultures is exploration of the nature of aging, because the population is aging more and more, often with a fair degree of health. So what is it like to age? That is to say, what is it like to become less than? To mourn the loss, to live in a state of grief at missed opportunity. And then what to do with that? It's a terrible thing to mourn a loss if there's nothing you can do. Now, we're very fortunate in terms of Dharma, because it always gives us something to do. No matter how painful an experience, if you see that many years of your life have just passed in hoi hoi and hoo hoo, running around and being crazy, and you'll never get these years again, that bitter taste can be very useful, because it's a reminder, well, I better start paying attention now. What will I attend to? What really has value? Then there are all these hooks, like the siren song carrying us off. I could do this, and there's so many movies I haven't read, and novels, and people to meet, and I haven't traveled to this country or that country. Are these things important? If we say yes, then the question has to be, okay, how will I read the novel? How will I look at the movie? How will I go to that foreign country? Who is the one who is traveling? what am I going looking for? Do I believe that going to a new restaurant is really going to improve my life? It's going to put some food in my mouth for a short period of time, and it's going to make a big hole in my wallet. But how will it improve my life? This impermanent experience is being cooked up in my head to make me feel this is special. And then it's gone. And then it's gone. And when we look back in our lives, how many of these special moments have we already had? Special holidays, special friends, special this, special that, and they vanish. This is the central point of looking at Pratitya Samutpad, the dependent co-origination. The answer doesn't lie in the object. The object is not going to give you what you need. The object cannot complete you as a person, because all object formations are impermanent and all subject formations are impermanent. All you get is a momentary configuration, a concatenation, a coming together of faculties and situations which generate a particular flavor. So, I know people who travel all around Europe and go to America to play golf because they want to play on different golf courses. That's very interesting. You get people who travel to other countries to look at different birds or to see tiger parks in India because they want to see that, or to go on some nature exploration in South Africa. That's fine. But having had that experience, what do you get? Maybe some photos, some memories. In the old days, according to the Hollywood movies anyway, the gunslingers would make little notches on their gun for every person they killed, adding up a score, a tally. But what do you get? Because the experience is gone. No experience, whether good or bad, can define who you are, unless you live entirely in a narrative. But when you meet people who have had a marvelous experience and who have woven it into their narrative and who want to invite you for an evening to see their 3-hour home movie of their visit to South Africa. And this is us on the Thursday afternoon. By that time we were getting quite used to what was going on. This is a really good bit now. Where's the wine? Because somebody's in their story. It's special for them for a while. And then it's bleeding away. And what you often see in that situation is the person's anxiety. How can I make it special again? But looking at a movie of your holiday is not the same as being on holiday. The holiday's gone. It won't come back. You will never ever be in that place at that time with these people again. It's gone. What you had was an experience, and the mementos you can bring from that are a new kind of experience. Watching a movie of your holiday is a new experience. It doesn't take you back to the holiday. But it's a kind of, it's like, you know, if you don't have much money as a student and you have to reuse your tea bags, by the third cup of tea there's not much flavour in it. You know, and that's what these kind of events are. There's a bleeding away. And in a sense, it's like, I can't get that special experience in my ordinary life. Which takes us back to another of Granny's sayings, the best is the enemy of the good. If you have a peak experience, the danger is it pisses on the rest of your life. Because it will never be that good again. So these attributions of specialness are often very strongly connected with reification, with the creation of the feeling sense of real entities and an objectification. When we look in terms of dependent co-origination, we can see, oh, that holiday arose due to these circumstances, it was wonderful, and it's gone. But if it was so wonderful I don't want it to go, that is irrelevant. That's where we are imagining that we are in control of events. So again, dependent co-origination is helpful for settling us into the place of the participant. We're not the boss, we're not the slave, we are participating in an evolving field, and the quality of that participation will depend on the arising of what we call internal factors, memories and so on, and external factors, changes in what's going on around us. None of these can be stabilized. So this is a way of thinking you can adopt for yourself in any situation. You can think, what am I hoping to get from this situation? I want to get something. As long as we're thinking in that way, we're likely to shortchange ourselves. Actually, all you can get in any situation is the experience of being there. Then it comes more back to the palm of your hand, because you can determine how present you are when you're there. In the moment of the experience, where was I? Because if you go on a perfect holiday, but when you get to your destination, you find that the airline has lost your bag, and you spend the first 5 days being in a terrible temper because you don't have your bag, it wasn't such a special holiday. Because you couldn't be on holiday, because you were with the iniquities of that bloody company and why they did this, and the service is appalling, and I'm going to write a letter and they don't care, and phoning. That happens to people. Where are we now? Now is the only time we have. We are time. Time is not some possession that you have, but we ourselves are always in the very center of each moment as it unfolds. This is all there is. Being present in time, being here, that is to say, embodied in a context, and now, which means not going after past thoughts, not chasing after future thoughts, but just being present. And that quality of presence is infinite, because the arising and passing of this seemingly internal and external factors, the subjective and the objective or the intersubjective, this is always changing and moving. Experience is changing, but the experiencer doesn't change. So this is the heart of the analysis. There are many books you can read on this if it interests you, but you can do it in a very simple way. You know, when you go shopping, you go to the vegetables and the fruit, they often have signs, if it's a big shop, from New Zealand or from South Africa. How amazing. What are all the factors that have caused this orange to come from South Africa? What are the trade links? What's the history of that? You can carry out that analysis yourself. And you can see all these complex chains of people. The people who work in air traffic control, who allowed the cargo plane to arrive on time. The guys who drove the van, who got up early in the morning, and what that means to their marriage, because they've got to be at the airport at 3 o'clock in the morning to get the cargo to take it to the market. Now, this guy's wife is not very happy that he's getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, because he's wanting to go to bed at 6 o'clock at night. And she's saying, well, we don't have any life anymore. And he says, well, I want the job. That's what you see, is so many complexities of people's existence are hovering around this orange. The orange is not a thing in itself. There are no things in themselves. There are no self-existing entities. That's what we were looking at yesterday in terms of there is no internally defining essence in any phenomena. Once we see that, we realize that when we use language as a way of naming, essentially what we're doing is using a pair of cognitive scissors to cut out shapes in the world. We look in this room, if you just look around, what you see is color and shape. That's what you see, color and shape. And even the color and shape is interpretive. But what you feel you see is different people. Different people is a cognition. We are identifying, that's a man, that's a woman, that woman's small, that woman's tall, that man's like this, and so forth. we are cutting out a shape and saying this is a unique, discrete person, and we then, in extrapolating them from the context, we apply to them particular forms of identification. So the control that the ego has in the world is basically a kind of violence. It's the violence of tearing asunder the integration of the non-dual field. That doesn't mean that when we talk to different people we don't find ourselves talking in different ways. But these people are connected with everything else, just as we are connected with everything else. So in any interaction, complex lines of connection are moving. And we make a conclusion. I find it easier to talk to John than to Bob, because I don't know, with Bob it's never quite, we have these little stories about this is what this person Bob is like, and this is what John is like, and this is what I'm like, therefore it's obvious that I would prefer talking to John than to Bob. This shape meets that shape and that shape. When you get into that, then you, if possible, you know which person to try to avoid, and then you come back to editing. Dependent co-origination is saying, because you and John and Bob are all connected anyway, why are you making this bias? Why are you saying this one is good, that one is bad? So dependent co-origination leads us to equanimity, being open to every situation. If you're having a conversation with John and it's difficult, that's what you're having. That is your life. But I don't want that. It's not a restaurant. That's what it is. Why are we limiting ourselves to say, I can't inhabit this. This feels uncomfortable. So dependent co-origination, if you look at it again and again, is to see the limitation that I see in John is the reflection of a limitation in me. So now we have two finite pieces, almost like we had a Lego set, and we're trying to hammer a bit that doesn't fit into the shape. Children often trying to do that. We say, well, that's not the right bit. Or like with a jigsaw puzzle, you've got to find the place where it fits. This is the kind of experience we're having. It's maybe bitter, it's maybe sour, it's maybe sharp. It's not what I want. It is what it is. And all the schools of Buddhism are stressing that if you can stay with it is what it is and keep opening to that, you will find more contentment, more profound satisfaction than if you try to live life on your terms. Because a huge amount of energy is wasted in trying to manipulate the world rather than shifting our own position. Tibetans have a nice saying. They say, it's easier to cover your own feet with leather than to try to cover the whole road. So if you're trying to sort out other people and find the perfect moment, that's not going to happen. But if you can put the leather around yourself, if you can wrap yourself in flexibility, tolerance, openness, then you can be with what's there. And when we do that, the difficult experience is there for a while, and then it goes. So this is the way of taking up the analysis. It means to use your intelligence, to use your knowledge of the world, and keep examining what assumptions am I bringing into the situation. Of course, as an analytic method, it's quite slow. It requires you not to be so caught up in the situation. And so it's a kind of preparation for proceeding. In the Tibetan tradition, that's a basis which is then taken into the tantric situation, in which we make use of the various energies of the world. By harmonizing with these energies, we can have a more direct experience of openness. We can do a little bit of that meditation practice just now. And we do it by essentially dissolving the sense of dualistic separation between subject and object. So in the tradition there are many, many different deities, each of whom have particular qualities and so on. We don't have time just now to go into these details, but we can work with the essence of that, which is in the open spaciousness of the world, in the sky-like basis of existence, the pure forms arise. That is to say, out of emptiness or the basic unformed nature, a dynamic form is arising. This is what the conclusion that we will come to through the dependent co-origination analysis, but now we're taking it up as a kind of given and in a symbolic way. So you can imagine in front of you the infinite clear blue sky, a beautiful summer's day, not a cloud inside, just infinite shining blue. And there, just above the top of your head in the distance, there is a ball of light. In the center, it's white in color, and around the surface you have these rainbow colors, red, blue, yellow, and green, and white. For some reason, Tibetans imagine there's white light in a rainbow. That's a cultural prejudice. So these lights are shimmering around, so just a ball in the space. And we imagine that this ball is the manifestation or the condensation of the body, speech, and mind of all the Buddhas. Now, imagining something in our Western tradition is a bit of a kind